Hello, children. In grammar today, we're going to be looking at types of clauses. But before we go on, I'd like us to recall what we treated last week. Can anybody remind me? If you say parts of speech, then you are very, very correct. I hope we all remember the 8 parts of speech and their functions. Very good. Now let's move on to today's lesson. For our objectives, we should be able to define a clause, give examples of clauses, list types of clauses, and identify types of clauses in sentences. Now, a clause. What is a clause? A clause is a related group of words with a subject and a predicate. Did we get that? A clause is a related group of words with a subject and a predicate. I'll also like you to take note here that a clause must have a subject, have a predicate, which is a verb, and then it must make sense. So we're going to be looking at independent and dependent clauses. If you look at the picture there, you see the bigger elephant and then the smaller elephant, and the smaller one is holding on to the bigger one, probably to get something. Now, independent clauses. Each independent clause has its own subject and verb and expresses a complete thought. Each independent clause has its own subject and verb and expresses a complete thought. We have an example there. The soccer team traveled to Knoxville and they won their division. This is an independent clause. Why? Because it can stand on its own. Do we understand? In the example above, the two independent clauses are joined by a comma and the coordinating conjunction and. So let's go back to the example. The soccer team traveled to Knoxville and they won their division. Can we identify the two independent clauses there? Okay, the first one there is the soccer team traveled to Knoxville. We can decide to end our sentence there and start another sentence. They won their division. So we can say there are two independent clauses there joined by a comma and the coordinating conjunction and. Examples of dependent clause. I stuffed all the envelopes and Jessica took them to the post office. I stuffed all the envelopes and Jessica took them to the post office. I did all the work, but he took all the credits. I did all the work, but he took all the credits. I am new at PowerPoint, but I like it. Subordinate clauses. Words such as whom, because, what, if, and until signal that the clause that follow them are subordinates. We have subordinate clauses do not express complete thoughts and cannot stand alone. I hope we understand that. Subordinate clauses do not express complete thoughts and cannot stand alone. Examples are whom he asked, because he answered, what he had heard. Examples of subordinate clauses. The officer whom he asked for directions was very kind. Now, if we look at that sentence, let's take note of the underlined part, whom he asked for directions. Can it stand on its own? No. So that makes it a subordinate clause. The second example here says, because he answered so politely, the man called to compliment the officer. The underlined part is because he answered so politely. It cannot stand on its own, therefore, it's a subordinate clause. Now, the third sentence. The chief of police was pleased by what he had heard. What he had heard cannot stand on its own, so that makes it a subordinate clause. Now let's look at subordinating conjunctions. These are words that introduce subordinate clauses. After, as soon as, once, whether, although, because, than, whenever, as, before, while, if, as if, even though, where, as long as, in order that, wherever, so that, since, though, when, unless, until. Now we have an oral activity here. I would like us all to look at it together. The instruction says, say I or D for independent or dependent clause. So I for independent clause and D for dependent clause. If you live on an island. If you live on an island. Is that an independent clause or a dependent clause? Write your answer down on a piece of paper quickly. Number 2, the tides affect your life. The tides affect your life. 3, the water level rises. 4, when the tide comes in. 5, much of the beach disappears under water. 6, until the tide goes out. Do we all have our answers now? Good. I would like you to mark as we look at the last slide. Number 1 is a dependent clause. Number 2, I, independent clause. 3, I, independent clause. 4, D, dependent clause. 5, I, independent clause. And 6, dependent clause. Did we all get that?